Shocking developments in the death of an 18-year-old high school cheerleader whose body was found stuffed under a bed on a cruise ship. Is her own stepbrother a suspect? Meanwhile, another relative lashing out that he cannot stay silent.
The mother of KH, the 16-year-old suspect in the cruise ship murder, has accused her ex-husband Thomas of, let's just say it's a word that sounds like obtuse but starts with an A. Meanwhile, Thomas has accused Chantal and his stepmother of keeping their son away from him.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. According to the New York Post, Thomas also blames his 16-year-old son's legal trouble on his ex-wife's decision to keep him away from his father, saying that his future has been put in jeopardy because of the choices made by Chantal. This is quite a serious accusation. It's basically the 16-year-old who's implicated in a murder, his biological father blaming the mother for what has happened. Well, is there any substance to that? Clearly, there has been a custody battle going on in the background, just as there was, I believe, in the Gus Lamont case. In that case, maybe not a battle, but an unresolved situation that was causing strife, stress, grinding frustration, and despair. Thomas fired back, accusing Chantal of a violent altercation with the couple's oldest son, who is an adult. So Thomas is accusing his ex-wife of some sort of violence that had to do with their oldest son. And one does wonder if there's some truth to that. What are the implications? The fight allegedly involved Chantal and her new husband, Christopher, and his father, according to court documents. Now, if there was a violent lashing out, where did this happen? Did it happen on the cruise? And was this a case of the eldest son standing up for his father, based perhaps on what his mother was saying? And did alcohol play into all this? You know, there's a saying, loose lips sink ships. And so I do think from the older people in this dynamic, you know, if there was violence, how does the younger child respond to this? How does he feel when he sees it happen? Other than to absorb it as part of his own portfolio of coping strategies.
Shocking new details are emerging today in the mystery death of an 18-year-old cheerleader found dead on a cruise ship. Court documents in a custody case say Anna Kepner's 16-year-old stepbrother is a suspect in the FBI investigation.
But before we get to the rest of this analysis, if you're new to the channel, I'm someone who's studied law. I've also written many books in true crime. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please subscribe. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. Now, I don't think it matters so much what the finer details are and who's right or who's to blame. I think what's clear is the family dynamic was causing anxiety. And I think that if that sounds like an understatement, it is. I think there was a lot of anxiety going on. There was a lot of sort of toxic anger, toxic feelings. And this is perfectly natural in a situation. First of all, we have a divorce that's not been finalized, but then at the same time, a mixed family situation within that scenario of a divorce that's not been finalized. And now you go on a cruise where everyone is supposed to be happy and have a happy time together when a lot of things haven't been settled, and clearly a lot had not been settled. And think about a situation like that, probably a lot of resources used up to fight each other or using up the healthy attention that would normally be paid to a young boy growing up. And you'd think on a trip like this that there would be time and space to unwind and relax and have that sort of healthy attention where people are spending time together, enjoying themselves. Unfortunately, they are taking with them a lot of that nastiness in their minds, in their hearts, in their heads, right? Because it's not been resolved. And that might, a young boy growing up needs healthy attention. Meanwhile, he's being exposed to this radioactive behavior, right? Does that make sense? And I think this leads to a critical level of neglect Possibly the attention that was paid to this kid was often negative, leading to a kind of negative reinforcement. I mean, if you are a parent, you're worn out, you're beaten down, and a child is coming to you with an issue, and this is within this whole situation of this divorce, and you've just gotten a text from someone you really don't like, and there's that just constant downward spiral of arguing and accusations and so on, probably going on over text. And then within this situation, a child comes to you with an issue. What is the default setting going to be like in that situation? It might be to swat it away, or to be like, not now, I have a headache. When a parent is exhausted, a child needing attention can feel like they are being pestered, irritated, and the child can just feel unwanted and rejected. And if that was the case, perhaps that was causing feelings to well up in the suspect, feelings of despair, anger, anxiety, and frustration. You might say teenagers have these feelings anyway, but these would be really intense within this dynamic, within this situation. Do you see that? And these feelings, despair, anger, anxiety, and frustration, may have expressed themselves in a sense as sexual frustration, unresolved anger, and perhaps violence.
I spoke with Anna's best friend, Genevicia Guerrero, about the stunning development. Her stepbrother may be a suspect in this. What was your reaction when you heard that?
I was angry, and I was mad, and I was sad. I can't imagine anybody hurting Anna.
Angry, mad, sad, and then someone gets hurt. There is also a social media post from the boy's uncle. We are not naming him, and we have not verified the authenticity of this post, but we're going to read it anyway, and I think we ought to read it with some circumspection. I need everyone's help on this. If you haven't heard this story, then you have been living under a rock. This is my niece, Anna Kepner. She was 18 and was on a cruise with her dad, stepmom, and other family members. I cannot stay silent about this matter any longer. The stepmom's son killed her, stuffed her naked, beaten body in a sheet, and stuffed her under a bed and covered her with life jackets. Then slept on that bed like nothing happened. He told his stepmom when no one could find Anna on the ship. Now, these are incredible allegations. First of all, that the stepson told his mother. Also that Anna was naked. We don't know that for a fact, but if that's true, then it does seem to be a sexual crime. And then the other element, that she was beaten. If that's true, then I don't think we're dealing with an overdose situation. I think we may be dealing with someone who got intoxicated, maybe two people who got intoxicated, and then things got out of hand. Now, this post, which I think has since been removed, predated the announcement from the FBI that they consider the 16-year-old TH a suspect. And I think that's really interesting because some elements of it now appear to have been verified. So where is he now? Where is TH? According to the New York Post, the stepbrother, who is identified as TH in documents, remains in the care of one of his mother's relatives as the investigation into Kepner's death on board a Carnival cruise ship continues. And that is according to legal filings in a Brevard County family court. Now, I think it's an interesting legal question whether the stepbrother will be charged as an adult or a minor. Believe it or not, this varies depending on what jurisdiction you are in. And by the way, let's have a look at that. Do you notice that blue state, almost an island surrounded by red and pink? That's Utah. Criminal responsibility there is relatively higher in terms of age, from the age of 12, whereas in Colorado, which is that rectangle right next door on the right, their criminal responsibility starts from age 10. Florida is even younger, with criminal responsibility starting at just 6 years old. And what legal system applies? If the murder was committed on a ship, under what jurisdiction does that fall? Will it be where the kid is domiciled? Will it be international waters? Or does maritime law apply here?
Yeah, guys, it's outside of my area of expertise.
Now, this seems as though it's being heard in Brevard County. I don't know whether it's that local law that will apply. That remains to be seen. Another legal question is whether the mother's accusation is true. If it is, and if the 16-year-old did commit a crime, this could be seen as mitigating circumstances. If it isn't true, and it's simply the hollow rhetoric and accusations that one often sees when there's a custody battle, then he could face a heavier sentence. I do think there's an interesting scenario here where if the mother did know about it, has she participated in covering up? Did she have anything to do with putting those life jackets there? I do think even if his father is innocent in all this, there clearly was family stress and anxiety going on, and a 16-year-old is not, in my opinion, properly equipped emotionally to deal with this. Will it be an extenuating circumstance, one that perhaps a jury might consider? Will there be some leniency in that regard?
I cannot stay silent any longer, he declared. He claims Anna was the victim of violent foul play and that the killer stuffed her naked, beaten body in a sheet and stuffed her under a bed and covered her with life jackets.
Someone did leave a very important and interesting comment regarding this. What were the sleeping arrangements? Where was Anna supposed to sleep? Did this happen in her bedroom? And also, what were the sleeping arrangements of the 16-year-old? Did each child have their own bedroom? And did each child stay in their own bedroom? Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Anna's role in this, as she saw it, was to soothe the youngster's feelings, and perhaps she ended up caught in a dynamic that was a lot more toxic and complicated, a dynamic that I think she may have underestimated because it was a lot more fraught and loaded than I think she realized. Personally, I think something similar happened with Nicole Kessinger. She too got caught up in a dynamic that was a lot more toxic and complicated, fraught and loaded than I think she realized as well. According to IBT, these unverified, highly emotional claims from a man identifying himself as Kepner's uncle have circulated widely on social media. You've probably read them, but they're accusing Anna's stepmother as well as the brother of responsibility for her death, and claiming that Anna's father has refused to speak publicly about what happened. Now, I think another legal question is whether Anna's stepmother bears any responsibility. Bear in mind, stepdaughters and stepmothers often don't get along. How did she feel about something going on between the two, certainly if she was aware of it? Basically, in any mixed family situation, family members who are not blood relatives often fiercely resent one another. Now, whatever is the case, whatever is the reality of the situation, it seems family dynamics are the key to finding out the true mechanics of what happened here and why. According to the IBT, the Miami-Dade medical examiner has not yet determined a cause or manner of death. The FBI, which has jurisdiction over potential crimes at sea, boarded the ship when it docked in Miami and initiated an investigation. Investigators are now actively examining whether an altercation between Anna and her stepbrother occurred before her death. Other possibilities include a medical episode or overdose that have not been ruled out. And I think one can also have a combination here, a intoxication situation combined with something else. According to reports on social media, Anna Kepner was affectionately known as Anna Banana, and she was described by her family as energetic, outgoing, deeply caring. Remember I said, I wonder whether she felt her position here was to, in a way, care for the 16-year-old almost in a motherly fashion, or as a big sister, and she kind of paid the price for that. And also, this caring was rooted in her Christian faith. She was reportedly a straight-A student at Temple Christian School, a cheerleader, a lifelong gymnast, as well as an aspiring U.S. Navy recruit with dreams of becoming a K-9 officer. Kepner was traveling with her father, stepmother, and stepfamily at the time of her death. Given the context of the crime in a cruise ship, it's hard to imagine substances and sex weren't a factor in some way in the murder of this beautiful young teenager. Well, I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.